I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here with Yvonne E.L. Silver to talk about her article in the July-August issue of On Purpose Woman magazine. Yvonne, thanks for being with me today.
Thank you for the kind invitation, Ginny.
And before we dive into this conversation, and I love the topic, what do you want our viewers to know about you?
Well, my focus is working with women entrepreneurs who are seeking to flourish. So it's those women typically who have not enough confidence, who have self-sabotage going on, or sometimes they just need enough sales to really have an easy, balanced lifestyle and be able to take a vacation. So it's using your words powerfully to ask for what you want and get it. That's my passion.
And you are well versed in that because you've got quite the career in helping women and other people, but you were in HR, I know, for a number of years. You have a lot of experience in women in business, and then you started working with entrepreneurial women. And so your article is called We Get What We Tolerate, right? And you begin by sharing that women often tolerate what they receive in the workplace, whether it be salaries or promotions or recognition, rather than negotiating for what we want. And that can have a substantial impact on their earnings by the time they reach 60. It's an astronomical amount of money that is left on the table. Will you say more about that?
Absolutely. Excuse me. So I spent about 20 plus years in senior HR roles and interviewing and hiring about 6,000 people. So not only does the data support it, but I saw this firsthand where women just didn't negotiate when it came to being offered a salary for a full-time position. The data shows, and this is back to Lavashire and Babcock, I quote that in my best-selling book, Words, Women and Wisdom, The Modern Art of Confident Conversations. But they quoted that their research showed up to $500,000, like $500,000 of lost income simply by not negotiating their first salary. And then, of course, that compounds. If you think most people get maybe a 2 or 3% merit increase every year, it's hard to catch up if you don't have a great start.
Yeah. And it's probably impacting older women even more because, you know, when I was in the corporate arena in the 70s and early 80s, we were getting 10% merit increases.
Yeah, well, that
in those days, yeah. So it adds up pretty quick. And you also mentioned that women entrepreneurs also have difficulty with asking for what they feel like they may be worth, or for like kind of dancing around pricing or just setting a price that may feel like too much for them. So it happens, it's a women thing. It's not like a corporate woman thing or an entrepreneurial woman thing. Why do you think this happens? Is it conditioning or something else, or a bunch of things?
I think it's a series of things, but certainly it starts very young, where we're always taught that girls should be good little girls. Very often in my era, I grew up, women should, or children in general, should be seen and not heard. You don't ask for something because you won't get it. So I learned early on, I needed to ask in choices. So I would say to my dad, I could do this or I could do this. And that way I'd have a 50% chance that I get a yes.
That's brilliant. I wish I'd known that when I was a kid.
Right? Versus, because if you leave it as an open-ended question and you give your power away by saying, can I do this? It's either going to be a yes or a no. And in his case, it was usually a no, because he was a PTSD war veteran that was very mean and very angry. So yes, women have a challenge very often because they want people to like them. They want to be nice. They want to give things away. And so they often cheapen their services and don't ask for what they're worth. And then when they have one client which fits that criteria, that client is a great referral, but then they tell all their friends and they tell the pricing. And then you kind of get stuck into that low price mode of attracting more of the same people. And it's hard to break out of.
Oh, such a great point. I remember growing up as a little girl, we would go visit friends of my parents, and I was told in no uncertain terms before we left, I couldn't even ask for a glass of water. You waited for somebody to offer something to you. Yes. And, that's hard. You've got to really unlearn those things, so it's not just a matter of recognizing that it's there. Then we have to have ways to do it. And you also share some ways to do that. But I'm gonna talk about something else before we go into your wonderful process called You, the three-step You process, because you also write about how women will often tolerate disrespectful behavior in relationships, but also in work, like maybe a bully for a boss or a bully for a mate. And one who always takes the credit at work, or you might get a poor performance rating that you don't deserve, or you're living with someone or married to someone who just belittles you. I mean, just toxic relationships. It's the same kind of thing, right? We get what we tolerate. And
Yes.
so this sentence that you wrote really struck me, that when women don't speak up, others assume things are fine and that we accept their behavior. That is
Yes.
huge. You want to say anything more about that?
Yes. I am doing a new program this year with a lot of passion because I just went through this very experience myself. I mean, here am I, the author of this book, right? 40 different words and word concepts to help women to ask for what they want and get it in that Confident Conversations book. And yet here I was, and it took a major illness that required surgery, getting a cancer cut out along with one of my kidneys last year, to wake me up when I'm laying in the recovery at home, trying to decide whether or not I could shuffle my way to the edge of the bed by myself to go to the bathroom. I realized that I have made myself sick trying to fix things in my relationship, and I'm at a point where I must make a change. Like, I must make a change. And unfortunately, it took a massive 2x4 to the head by the universe, thank you very much, to realize that was what I was doing, because I was trying to use my coaching skills on my relationship, which just doesn't work. If you've ever tried to coach someone you love, it just doesn't work. They've got to be willing to do the work. And that's ultimately what happens, is when others around us aren't ready to make a change, the only way to change the situation is when we take control and we decide we're making the change, right? Back to Gandhi, be the change in the world you want to be. So I chose in December, after I'd done some healing, I chose to leave the relationship and get my own place as of January. So the last 6 months has been a lot of turmoil. And yet I still feel that stepping into my sovereignty, taking back my power, and not tolerating crap in my life and negative energy has been such a positive choice. People look at me now, even on Zoom, that have never met me in person. They say, my gosh, you're so alive, you're so light. And I think that is just the energy of sloughing off, the kind of like the dead cells that don't work.
Just thinking of superfluous stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, stuff that you don't need, right?
Yeah.
And when we don't ask, people assume everything is fine, but it wasn't fine.
Yeah. Or at least sometimes I think they don't think it's fine, but they think they're getting by with it. In those situations, it's like, oh, well, this isn't, she probably isn't happy, but she didn't say anything. So I'm just going to coast through here. At least that's been my experience. So.
There certainly was a point, Ginny, where this was, a lot of different things are happening in the marriage, but on the topic of infidelity, where at one point I said to myself, well, at least I get to, at least he comes home to me every night. It's
a low bar, isn't it? I can relate to that, but it's a low bar. Yeah.
It is a low bar to say, at least I've got the ring. I'm the official Mrs. I've got the best bits, but at some point, that's just it's a low bar. And as I said, it took unfortunately getting really, really sick. And I did have a booming voice come through, and I had food poisoning about 4 years ago. And I was staying with some friends, and there was a big party going on downstairs. And I could smell, all kinds of, weed and stuff coming from downstairs. And I'm rolling around for 4 days in bed with food poisoning. And I remember getting this booming voice waking me up at one point saying, you need to leave your husband. And I was so stunned and so shocked at the time, because I was like, what the heck, right?
Like, who
That I
said
didn't
that,
act on it.
right? Yeah.
I know I didn't act on it until several years later. But I took action and I feel so much happier now, so much happier.
You know, I so appreciate your straightforwardness, your vulnerability, and sharing your story, because even though you say you are much more alive now and look more alive and you're more vibrant and probably, what's the term? You want women who want to flourish? Is that you probably weren't flourishing, but weren't there people in your life who thought you had it all and that everything was great?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
social media can be the great cover up, right?
Right.
And the pictures I was posting, I think as most people in life, you know, you post the highlights.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily talk about the other stuff, right? I mean, it's in England, growing up in London, England as a child, there were certain things that you didn't talk about, right? You
Oh, yeah.
certainly didn't talk about money. You didn't talk about your feelings, and you didn't ask for things. So you weren't, you know, seeming to be above your station in life. You know, they had that class structure in England. And so you get snuffed out, and you do get put down. And certainly in my case, as I said, my dad was a very angry man. And you know, he literally took the dignity right out of my mum. I mean, she was a working professional when they met, and then she became a stay-at-home mum. She didn't have her own income. She didn't have her own freedom, because she taught him to drive the car, and then he took the car keys and wouldn't let her drive the car. Excuse me. So he took away her freedom, and she lost her voice. Literally, she lost her voice.
Wow.
And that was part of why I wrote that book to begin with, because I realized that there was something more, that I was here to contribute. And thinking about it was really, you know, I love words. I love the power of words. You know, you change one word from should to could, and it has this whole different, you know, move from obligation and that feeling of, oh, I got to do something, to, oh my gosh, I have a possibility. I could choose this. And intermingling that with Reiki, my Reiki training, and then 15 years working, specifically in the last 15 years working to support executive women, either women leaders or women entrepreneurs. In the last few years with executive coaching, I've really seen what a difference it makes when women decide to claim their power back, and then add in more powerful language, stop using weak words that diminish our power. And just is one of those words. Oh, I just want to blah, blah, blah. Well, you just made it sound so small and insignificant. Take that word out. Yeah. It makes a difference.
Well, I'm not clear if you developed this 3-part process as you were going through this for yourself, or had you already developed it and put it out into the world and then decided to use it on yourself? Which came first?
I decided when I wrote the article, because I was passionate about this whole topic and very, very fired up, that no other woman needs to go through this without asking that question, that bigger question. What are you tolerating, and what is it costing you? Right?
Huge question. What is it costing you? Yeah.
Yeah, because it was fresh on my mind, and I could see and feel the distinct difference in my energy level when I actually did it. And so it was a tough choice. I mean, I have a special needs son. My life is a bit complicated. However, I just knew that the day that I left, if I didn't leave, it was like an elephant was sitting on my chest. It was crushing. Like I had to leave. I had to. So when I wrote the article, I thought about, you know, how had I chosen to do it, and what was, you know, 3 simple steps that could potentially help other women. I have to say, Ginny, because I've had some massive computer problems this week, I can't bring the article up. I write a lot of things, so I don't know if I even have the process clear in my head, because my head is so full of computer issues right now. So
I've got the process in front of me, and I'll just ask you a question about it. How's that?
There we go. Let's prompt me, because I've written many other articles and done many other presentations for different women's groups. And there's lots of processing been happening, lots in the last 9 months. So
So this process is called YOU, and it's an acronym for
Yeah.
your time, your options, and your understanding. And so let's start with your time. What do you want to say about that? How do we, is it about taking control of your time, taking time for yourself?
So the you part for me was about taking time for me to go out in nature and reflect and really clear out the clutter, clear out the distractions, and put the sole focus on me. So when I go out in nature, I've got quiet time, I'm meditating, I'm journaling, I'm asking myself the bigger questions. And it really is critical that every woman carves out time like that for herself. Every woman, no matter whether you are going through something stressful or not. And to be able to ask for that time, if you're not automatically receiving it from your family members, to say, no, I need some me time. And it's not a selfish thing, it's an essential thing. It's like breathing. It's like nourishing your body with great food.
Yeah.
We need it. So the you part is about taking time for you to go out, clear your mind, clear your head, ask yourself the bigger questions, and really start putting into perspective, what is it that you are tolerating and what is it that you want to make a change? And when are you willing to make that change? Because sometimes it's not a I'm leaving now moment. It's, you know, in my case, I was thinking about how am I going to do this? What is going to be the best way to do it for a little bit of time, because I had just gone through surgery. I'm not
really?
ready to just leave and be sleeping on someone's couch. I'm trying to recover from surgery. But I did have some amazing friends that came forward. I didn't end up sleeping on anyone's couch. But I did have some amazing friends who stepped up to let me stay with them over the next 6-week period after I left until I could get myself sorted out.
Well, that's taking us then into the second, which is the O, which stands for options. So it sounds like you were looking at the options that you had. And one option wasn't, I'm just going to go get me a place to live right now, because you were still recovering from your surgery and your illness. So how might we look at our options? How might we weigh our options? Well,
at the time for me, it was important to have a cleaner, fresh slate, because when it's kind of like if you, it's summertime, you go into a natural pond, right? As soon as you start walking, there's mud on the bottom, you're kicking up all the mud. But and you can't see anything, but if you take the time, first of all, for yourself and stand stock still and let the water settle around you, then you get the clarity, because you're not in action, right? And nothing is being kicked, no mud is being kicked up. So the same time when we're looking at, what are our choices? Yeah, pros and cons work well until it's matters of the heart, right? We really do have to tap in and say, what is our heart telling us is the right thing for us? And it's not anything that anyone else can guide you on. It has to be your heart, your gut, do the gut check and check in and make sure, is this the right decision for me? And you'll know it, you'll feel it. Even if you're not trained in Reiki like me, you'll feel it.
Now, what happens? Did this happen with you? And if it didn't, what do you think someone might do? What happens when you feel it in your heart, but your brain still kicks in and tries to take over? Well, that's not logical. That doesn't make any sense. How do we make the heart the ruler of it all, if that makes sense? Yeah.
Well, it is important to recognize that the amygdala in your brain is your safety mechanism, right? All the time, your brain is saying, is that safe? Is that safe? Is that safe? That's its job, right? And so it is about taking the acknowledging, yes, this might feel like it's unsafe. Excuse me. However, every bone in my body, every cell in my body is screaming another answer. And so I need to listen to the whole, not just the brain. So thank you, brain. I'm going to make this small step first, and I'm going to see how that feels, and I'll check in with you later. I mean, really, it's not a case of always making a big change. What is the small incremental change the brain can then get used to, and doing it that way? Much like coaching, right? We don't necessarily make a massive leap. Sometimes it is a big aha, but other times it's a small, incremental, consistent change every day.
I really do relate to what you're talking about. I made a change like that with my career. Not only did I leave a toxic job environment, I left a toxic career, I thought, took a huge pay cut, went to do something else I really wanted to do, which led me into the entrepreneurial space a few years later. That was the second big decision I had made. The first one was to leave my marriage. And I remember in those moments being terrified, but there was something much bigger than the terror that was just telling me, you have to. I felt like in both situations, I was just going to shrivel up and lose my soul if I stayed,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just a matter of tapping in and really trusting what we all know, to be true. Trust our gut, trust our heart.
Yeah. Well,
And
trust
don't
is
listen to all the advice that's swirling around you either.
well, trust is a big thing, right? No one else is living your life.
Yeah,
They can't tell you. And, when other people are offering opinions all the time, it's a simple case of, thank you for your opinion. You're not saying, yes, I'm going to act on it. Yes, no, I'm not going to act on it. Thank you. That's all that's needed in that moment, so that you can percolate and process. Had I not had that massive booming 2x4 voice coming through several years ago, would I have taken any longer to do it? I think I took long enough, really. And yet, as I said, it was complicated, because it was almost like stepping off the cliff and building your wings as you go down, because there was a number of things that were going on, and I had hope that I could help fix things, and they weren't mine to fix. So sometimes we have to let go and let the other person step into their power and do their own work, because we can't do it for them.
so true, so true. And it was also my experience that people who mean well, oftentimes mean well, but they bring their own fears into it. And so they can't imagine doing what you're talking about doing or what you've done. And so they have, that's all they have to offer at that moment is all the downside. And I know I had to have those couple of people who just supported me no matter what, you know, yeah, who I knew that I wouldn't fall too far. But I had to just kind of put a box around everybody else and say, thank you for caring. Thank you for caring. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the you still, and the you is about understanding. You say to be compassionate with yourself. Why is that important?
Because at the end of the day, if you don't put yourself first, no one else is going to. And so there's no point in trying to go backwards and look and judge yourself and say, oh, I should have done this, and why did I stay so long? And in this case, let's say we're talking about a relationship breakdown, right? So we could spend a lot of time beating ourselves up, but once the heart has made the choice, and every bone in your body and every cell in your body is screaming, like in my case, I said it was like an elephant was sitting on my chest. I knew that I had to leave, and my body was telling me it was like, now it's time. Once you make that choice, then you can really step into those commitments to honor who you are and what are the options that are the best options for you, and really step into that piece. So it is about understanding, yes, I can't change anything other than I can change myself and how I choose to respond to a situation. And therefore, I'm going to be the one who's taking the action. I'm stepping back into the driver's seat. I'm not sitting in the back seat anymore. I've chosen to sit in the driver's seat. I might not have a clear direction exactly where I'm going, but I know I'm heading in this direction. Head west, young man.
Just
Head
move.
to the
Just get
light.
into action, right? Just move.
Just move, right? That little movie, that cartoon movie Inside Out, where there's the little pinprick of light in the dark tunnel. Just head to the light, right? The light, I don't want to be I'm very spiritual and not necessarily religious, but when you head towards the light, you can't go wrong.
I so agree. And I think for me, I remember getting to this space where I knew it had all been perfect timing. Had I done it earlier, there would have been a different result. It may have been a great result as well, but it was just perfect timing for me at that point in my life for both big things that I did. You know, and I written and talked before about how those were really the first two main conscious decisions I'd ever made about my life, because I was so controlled growing up. I didn't have a sense of freedom. I wasn't allowed to make mistakes and learn
Oh,
from them. So I went out and made a bunch of mistakes when I got to college, you know, did a bunch of stuff that could have gotten me harm and really harmed, but I managed to not. But then, you know, went into a marriage without ever living in my own space, went right from college dorm to marriage. And so I was terrified I was going to live in my own space for the first time. And I had a child who was 3, you know, and so when I look back at that young woman, I remember, I'm so glad you said that about compassion, because I remember feeling embarrassed at some point because I didn't know in my early 30s that I had choices. And when my therapist said to me in the very first visit, "You don't have to do it that way anymore." And I said, "I don't." And I used to feel embarrassed about that. And I got to the space where I'm so proud of that young woman who made those choices in spite of not knowing that she had choices at the time, you know, because we do the best we can given what we have. I do believe that. And so I love your process, Yvonne. What else do you want to say about it as we wrap this up?
well, I think the whole thing is about those 3 letters. It's about you,
Yeah.
right? It's not about it's not about tolerating something that you know is ultimately harming you in some way, shape, or form, whether it's physical harm, whether it's emotional harm, whether it's holding you back. I mean, I had a constant feeling that I was like a butterfly where my wings were being clipped, like a butterfly in a box. And I even said this, you know, to my husband, you know, you can't keep a butterfly in a box; it'll flap itself to death. And that's part of how I had been feeling, suffocated. So when you look at your life, ladies, you know, here we are halfway through the year. We're going to be stepping in September into the last quarter of the year. Is your life going in the direction that you had hoped it would be? And if you are feeling that there is a question, what am I tolerating? What is it costing me that needs answering? Please take the time to go out in nature, invest the time in yourself, put some beautiful music on, some meditation music. There's lots of different megahertz meditation music on YouTube. You can put healing music for and fill in the blank for just about everything, whether it's, you know, inflammation, knee pain, heart healing, romance, you know, whatever it is. Put some quiet music on and really dive into that question. What am I tolerating? What is it costing me? And ultimately, what do I need to do differently in order to feel different? Because when you take back your sovereign power and it's just you making that decision, and I say just you purposefully in this context, it's powerful. It's powerful to know that you do not have to rely. I chose to rely on some friends for a period of time, and I'm really grateful for those friendships. And I also chose to take my power back and to extract myself from an intolerable situation.
Well, I want to say to the people watching this live or the replay, Yvonne shares much more in her article and also shares some links that can be quite helpful to you. So all of those links and everything is in the text of both the live video and on our YouTube channel. Yvonne, how can our viewers find out more about you?
So you can go to my website, yvonnesilva.com. I encourage you to reach out to me find me on LinkedIn, Yvonne E.L. Silva. Feel free to connect there. I periodically publish a variety of different articles on different topics. They're usually all around women and women's voices. Because I had some technology challenges going on right now with my regular laptop, I had been planning to do an event on Thursday, the 8th, called You Get What You Tolerate, right? However, I'm deciding to actually push that back until the 22nd. But if you are intrigued and want to learn more about this topic, you can still register through the link on my website. There's an events tab, and it'll automatically transfer your registration over to the 22nd when I move the date. That was just a decision I made this morning. So, and I will talk a little bit more about the new thinking that's bubbled up, which has evolved into a new program called My Voice, which is designed exactly to strengthen your commitment to yourself about your value and how to speak up and articulate that in the world, whether you are a working professional or whether you are a woman entrepreneur who's seeking to flourish.
So women watching this, if anything that Yvonne has said resonates with you, or you have that little kind of maybe glitchy feeling in your body that says, ooh, I think, or some of you may be going, oh man, she's speaking to me right now. Go check out her website and see what she has to offer, because she has some great, great stuff coming up. So as a final thought, Yvonne, what do you want to leave our viewers with today?
Well, I think that is really the ultimate question, because if we think about making change, we talked about the amygdala kicks in and it's like, oh, scary, change is scary. Well, yes, but if we aren't sure what it is that we want, you can also, there's a concept I talk about in my book, which kindly Michael Lozier, who wrote the Law of Attraction book, let me incorporate in the book, where you put a letter T down on a piece of paper, because we don't know what it is sometimes that we want, but we sure as heck know what we don't want.
Yeah.
So you start with, I don't want these. This is what's happening in my life right now. And then on the other side of the vertical line, you put instead, what's the opposite of that, right? So if it's work, I don't like being micromanaged. So what I want is freedom to actually do my job without my boss leaning over my shoulder. In my case, I don't want to be in a marriage that's toxic. So what do I want? Well, I want to feel free to be actually in control of my life again and step into something way better that feels light, airy, and not oppressive and negative. So when we know what we don't want, it's much easier to flip into what it is that we do want, because sometimes the brain is trying to protect you and it won't let you envision that bigger thing, which is the what I really want right away. So use that technique.
Thank you for sharing that. It is a very valuable technique that I have used over the years. And you're right. I remember going to a 5-day retreat. I ended up working for this company at some point. And one of the things we had to do early on was sit across in a dyad position from another person who asked us, what do you want? And we had to say, and what do you want? And what do you want? What do you want? And I remember about the 25th, what do you want? I was starting to get annoyed, irritated, ticked off, because I told you already what I want. And I was still up here in my head, answering all those things I thought I was supposed to want. But the truth is, underneath all of that, I'd never really asked myself, what do I want?
Yeah.
Really, down deep down, and it's a very powerful exercise. And like Yvonne says, be gentle with yourself during that process, because you will get to the core of it. If you stick with it, you will get to the core of it, I do believe.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom, both in the magazine and with us here today. And I also want to point out, tell our viewers to check out the video of the talk that Yvonne did for the On Purpose Woman Global community on word power. 5 keys to being a more confident woman using proven science. That's also on our YouTube channel. The link to that video is in the text of this video as well. So ties in very well with the article and what we've been talking about today. So thank you again, Yvonne. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you so much, Ginny. Thank you for putting this beautiful community together. It's really important that women who are forward thinking, have a conscious heart, and it's not only about making money in their business, but they really want to let things flourish naturally and do good in the world, that those things get celebrated. And women like you putting these groups together make a real difference. So thank you.
You're so welcome. And thank you for those words. You get it. You get what we're all about. I appreciate that. And I want to thank anyone who's watching the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show. For more information on the On Purpose Woman Global community and magazine, click on the links in this video and be sure to check out Yvonne's website for all that she's offering. And for more interviews with amazing women living their lives on purpose, check out our YouTube channel, which is also in the text of this video. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Ginny.